She leaned against the cold alloy wall, her voice a velvet whisper in her native tongue, unaware the translator implant in his ear was still functioning, barely. That muscle across his stomach, she purred, tightens when I move too close. He pretends to be unaware, but he listens with his skin. Her words wrapped around him like silk in the dim cargo bay light. I wonder if his lips taste the way they look, firm, sun-warmed, a little dangerous. She paused, then added something far more dangerous. If he knew what I was thinking, he wouldn't be standing so calmly. Or maybe, he would. Jace didn't move. He stood shirtless, framed by stacked carbon crates, sweat glistening from drills he pretended were exhausting. He'd disabled the translator minutes ago, publicly. Privately, it still caught enough to paint her intentions in colors far more vivid than any language. He was trained to act, and now that training mattered more than anything. He blinked slowly, pretending curiosity. His heart, though, betrayed him in its pacing. Lieutenant Vara Sealis continued pacing slowly, her bodysuit gleaming in the shadows like a serpent's skin. Her eyes, glowing amber beneath waves of red hair, lingered too long across his chest. She was too close. The ship's narrow maintenance bay seemed to shrink every second she breathed. "You didn't answer my question," she said finally, switching to standard with a coy smirk. "About the stasis crates. Are they safe around, human biology?" Jace shrugged. "Only if no one touches the pulse coils. Especially not anyone with," he let his gaze trail, almost lazily, down to her gloved fingers. "Warm-blooded tendencies." She laughed, light and teasing, but there was heat behind it, just like everything else she said. "And what if I like heat?" Jace tilted his head. "Then I'd suggest we stay in separate airlocks." Vara arched one finely sculpted brow. "You afraid of contamination, Terran?" He grinned. "Terran, yes. Afraid? Not exactly." A flicker of something unspoken passed between them. They weren't supposed to be here alone. After all, this was an off-shift hour, and the crew had been ordered to stay in designated sleep pods during the plasma calibration. But Vara had overridden the schedule and invited him down here herself, using the pretense of technical advice for a pod she surely already understood. And Jace had come, knowing exactly what that might mean. He wasn't the only one keeping secrets. She moved again, her hand brushing along the edge of the crate beside him, fingers lightly tapping the glyphs embedded in the alloy. "These symbols, they're older than our current alphabet. Pre-split dialect." "I've seen them before," he replied, before catching himself. "I mean, in the archives." Vara's lips parted slightly. "That's interesting," she said slowly. "Because those records were only unsealed last rotation. Not even I had access to them yet." Jace felt a bead of sweat trace his spine. He covered the moment by stepping forward just a fraction and adjusting a monitor's readout. "Maybe I've been spending too much time in restricted databases." She studied him like a puzzle she almost wanted to leave unsolved. "You're not just a xenobiologist, are you? You say that like it's a bad thing." "Depends," she said, her voice low now, almost dangerous again. "On what you really came aboard the Virelex for." Their bodies were inches apart now, neither willing to step back. The artificial gravity buzzed faintly in the floor panels. His bare skin was too aware of her presence, of her scent like ozone and crushed star petals, and the way her chest rose and fell in time with her calculated breathing. He finally whispered, "Let's just say I like learning, in the field." She smirked, turning slowly, deliberately brushing her hip along his side as she leaned toward the pod. "Then you should know," she murmured, "that these crates weren't meant to be opened. Not by humans." He forced a laugh, but there was something real in it. "Is that a warning or an invitation?" "I guess," she said, "we'll find out soon." A sudden metallic clunk echoed above them. Both froze. The ship's alarm system blinked red along the corridor's edge. A voice crackled in through the comms, sterile and monotone. "Stowaway detected. Non-registered lifeform present. Section 7C crew restricted. Containment protocols initiated." Vara's expression sharpened instantly. She touched the control panel, locking down the crate. "That was just above us." "Section 7C is the dorsal crawlspace," Jace muttered. Nobody goes up there unless they're trying not to be seen. Another silence. The kind that doesn't come from quiet, but from two people calculating at the same time, behind different masks. I need to go check it, she said. No, Jace replied, his tone clipped. We both go. She hesitated, just a moment. Protocol says. Screw protocol. If it's a stowaway, you'll need backup. Or cover, she said carefully. He didn't respond. Neither did she. The crate behind them blinked once, then went dark. Glyphs that had glowed moments ago now pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat waiting to wake up. Without another word, they turned together and ran. Not toward safety. Toward danger. And maybe, toward each other. The dorsal crawl space was darker than it should have been. Emergency lighting flickered along the edge of the access corridor, painting shifting shadows across the alloy walls. Vara led the way, silent and sure-footed, her hand hovering near the grip of her sidearm but never touching it. Jace followed closely, the echo of his bare footsteps muffled by the narrow confines. She didn't ask why he hadn't put a shirt on before following her into potential danger. She probably liked it. He pretended not to notice her quick, stolen glances back. They reached the hatch. She keyed in the override manually, deliberately slow, as if giving him a chance to stop her. He didn't. The hatch opened with a hiss. Cold recycled air greeted them, thick with ozone and something older, something metallic and ancient. Jace's breath caught. Inside, nestled in a shallow alcove behind pipes and conduits, was a second stasis pod. But this one wasn't like the others. This one was carved. Not fabricated. It looked grown. The pod pulsed faintly, light glimmering through translucent veins. Alien runes spiraled across its shell like living vines. It radiated a presence, something deeply Zenthary and yet, not. Vara stepped forward first, placing her hand on the curve of its casing. Her eyes widened. I know this, she whispered. It's royal. Blood-sealed. Jace's stomach turned. That's not on any manifest. No, she said. Because it's not supposed to exist. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she added, it shouldn't be awake. He stepped forward, standing beside her, close enough to feel the heat radiating from her skin. What does it mean? He asked, voice low. That someone smuggled something sacred aboard a science ship, she replied. And wanted it kept secret. Even from me. She didn't meet his eyes. Her fingers stayed pressed to the pod as if afraid it would disappear the moment she let go. Jace took a breath. Vara, who are you? She exhaled slowly, as if deciding just how much of herself to reveal. My full name, she said, is Vara Celestine. Heir to the First Circle. Daughter of the Queen who burned the skies. Jace stared. The titles meant little to most humans, but he'd read enough Zenthary history to understand. The First Circle. A bloodline believed exiled. Thought extinct. You're royal. She nodded, barely. And this? He gestured toward the pod. My sister. Jace blinked. Your sister is in that pod. She was taken as an infant. We believed she died in the revolt. Her voice cracked, just enough to prove she hadn't said this out loud before. If she's here, someone meant to revive her in secret. Possibly to reclaim the throne. And you weren't told? No one tells exiles anything. Jace didn't know what to say. So he didn't. He reached out and gently took her hand away from the pod. Her fingers trembled slightly in his. She didn't resist. Her eyes flicked to his bare chest, then back up to his face. The earlier teasing was gone. This wasn't flirtation. This was something rawer. I should be afraid of you, he said quietly. Then why aren't you? He leaned closer. Because I've already seen the worst of this galaxy. And somehow, you're still the most dangerous thing in it. She let out a slow breath. You're lucky the translator's still broken. It's not, he said. Not really. She froze. You understood, she asked. Everything I said earlier? He nodded once. Every word. Her lips parted, shock, embarrassment, and desire all battling at once. She didn't step away. Neither did he. Their mouths were inches apart. Then the comm crackled again, this time with urgency. Lieutenant Sealis, report to bridge. Captain requests immediate presence. Possible security breach. Vara closed her eyes, cursing in her language one word, low and sharp. She turned toward the corridor, but Jace caught her wrist. Don't tell them about the pod, he said. She looked at him, deeply, searching. Why? Because someone smuggled your sister aboard and didn't trust you enough to say so. That means this goes deeper than protocol. And you're just a xenobiologist, she said, her tone skeptical. No, he admitted. Not really. Before she could press further, another sound interrupted them. A soft metallic click from behind the pod. Both turned. A silhouette moved in the shadows, humanoid but gaunt, eyes glowing faintly yellow from under a security cloak. The stowaway. It raised something, a weapon or a tool, they couldn't tell. Vara raised her sidearm instantly. But Jace lunged first. He tackled the figure into the side wall. They struggled in the narrow space, limbs crashing against conduit and metal. The stowaway hissed something in a language neither of them recognized. Vara joined the fray, her boot catching the figure in the side. The weapon clattered to the floor. The intruder scrambled away, vanishing through a vent grate before either could follow. Jace panted, catching his breath. Vara knelt beside the object the stowaway left behind. A data pad. Old. Burned nearly beyond repair. She activated it. A single image flickered to life. A scan of the pod. Beside it, a set of coordinates. And a name. Vara N.A. Jace looked up. That's my sister's birth name, she whispered. They stared at each other, and in that moment, something shifted. No more pretense. No more masks. Only shared danger. And something deeper neither dared name yet. Far below the crawlspace, the ship hummed with tension. Somewhere, someone was playing a much larger game. And they had just been caught in it. The crawlspace sealed behind them with a final hiss. Vara didn't speak as she walked, her strides longer now, faster, like her thoughts were outrunning her body. Jace matched her pace without question, both of them still charged with the aftershock of what they'd seen, what they'd almost felt. He could still feel her fingers brushing his as she'd taken the datapad from the floor. That touch had lingered longer than it should have. They didn't return to their bunks. Instead, they slipped through corridors dimmed for rest cycle hours until they reached the diagnostics lab. It was quiet, sterile, almost painfully bright after the shadows of the crawlspace. Vara closed the door behind them manually and locked it. We're not safe, she said finally, her voice low. I know, Jace replied. You lied, she added, facing him. So did you. She tilted her head. I never claimed to be honest. He stepped closer. And I never claimed to be just a scientist. For the first time, she looked at him fully, not the half-teasing glances from before, but a direct, searching stare. Then what are you? He didn't flinch. Counterintelligence. Embedded by Terran command. My orders were to monitor unusual royal activity among Zenthari refugees. He paused. Your name came up 6 months ago. Of course it did, she said coldly. I didn't expect to find you here. Let alone, he trailed off. Her tone was sharper now. Let alone what? Let alone wanting to protect you. She crossed her arms. And now? What happens now, Agent? Jace stepped closer again. Now, I help you. Because if someone is trying to revive your sister without your knowledge, it means they don't care if you get caught in the crossfire. And you do. I didn't plan to, he said, his voice softening. But then you started whispering things you thought I couldn't understand. Her breath caught. Silence stretched between them. The lights hummed above, the datapad still glowing faintly on the diagnostics table. Outside the lab, the ship creaked and shifted. But here, they were still. Breathless. Say something in your language, he said suddenly. What? Just, something. Anything. She hesitated. Then whispered, Je verrai t'aider. His eyes darkened. And what does that mean? It doesn't translate directly, she said. Try. She walked to him slowly, deliberately, until they were barely a hand's width apart. It means, I should not want what I do. Jace didn't move. Then we're saying the same thing. Her hand moved first upward, tentative at first, until it rested lightly on his chest. She felt his heartbeat. Strong. Faster than it had been minutes ago. He leaned in, forehead almost touching hers. You sure? I'm already too far in, she whispered. Their mouths met in a kiss that didn't ask permission. It was slow at first, deliberate, exploratory, like both of them had imagined it too many times to rush now. Her fingers curled into his shoulder, his hand slid up to the nape of her neck. The lab's bright lights blurred as everything narrowed to that single point of contact, lips, breath, warmth. The kiss deepened, losing its patience. Jace backed her gently into the diagnostics table, and she let him. Her body arched to meet his, the contrast of her cool skin against his heat sending a jolt through both of them. He exhaled sharply against her mouth. She made a sound low in her throat that he felt more than heard. The datapad buzzed once, new data retrieved. Neither of them noticed. He kissed her jaw, then her throat. She tilted her head back, eyes fluttering shut, hands gripping his sides now. Jace. He stilled. Her voice saying his name raw, unscripted, was more intimate than anything else that had happened. She opened her eyes. We should stop. I know. Neither of them moved. But we won't, she added. No, he whispered. We won't. Outside the lab, an alert pinged softly from the intercom. Unauthorized activity in Engineering Bay 4. Possible sabotage. Crew ordered to station. Vara sighed, forehead against his. Duty calls. Ignore it, he said, his voice still husky. I can't. He closed his eyes, composed himself, then slowly stepped back. Then we go together. They gathered themselves quickly. She adjusted her bodysuit. He pulled a lab coat over his bare torso. It didn't fool anyone, but it was protocol, and right now, appearances mattered. The engineering bay was already crawling with crew by the time they arrived. Sparks shot out from one of the cooling towers, smoke curling along the ceiling. Someone had tried to melt the coolant regulators, almost triggering a core destabilization. Captain Ryo stood at the center, barking orders. He turned the moment they arrived. Lieutenant. Dr. Rowan. You two were off-grid. Vara replied coolly, we were responding to the dorsal stowaway alert. Ryo narrowed his eyes. And what did you find? Jace answered before she could. Just an old storage unit. Probably a false reading. Ryo didn't look convinced. We'll sweep it again. Vara nodded. Of course. The captain looked between them, then walked away. Jace leaned toward her. They're watching us now. They already were, she whispered. Later that night, long after the fire crews had dispersed, they met again. Not in the lab. Not in her quarters. In the observation shaft. Where no surveillance reached. Stars drifted silently beyond the glass, stretching in endless spirals. Vara stood with her back to the window, arms folded. I told myself I'd never trust anyone again, she said. Especially not a Terran spy. I told myself I wouldn't get attached on missions. And yet. He moved beside her, not touching this time, but close enough to feel her gravity again. The datapad, she said, just finished decrypting. What did it say? She turned to him, voice quiet. The pod is timed to open in less than 48 hours. There's no override. No shutdown. Someone set this chain of events in motion weeks ago. And now, she said, my sister will wake up. And when she does, this ship becomes a throne. Or a battlefield. Jace nodded slowly. We have to decide which. Vara's hand found his. Not just for comfort. But as a silent pact. The countdown began at 0400 hours. Hidden beneath layers of legacy code and genetic encryption, the pod's awakening sequence had been ticking forward while the crew scrambled over sabotage repairs and false leads. By the time Vara and Jace stood before it again, the translucent surface was already rippling like liquid glass. She's stirring, Vara whispered, her fingers brushing the shell that pulsed with an inner glow. She'll be confused. Scared. Maybe dangerous. Jace didn't speak. He watched the way her expression shifted between fear and reverence. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. Her eyes flicked up. "I've always done it alone." "Not this time." The silence between them was heavier than it had ever been. And somehow more comforting. The pod let out a slow, rising tone, melodic and ancient. Light spilled out from the seams, casting long shadows in the crawlspace. Then the surface opened like the petals of a massive, breathing flower. Inside lay a girl no older than 20, suspended in time. Her features were nearly identical to Vara's, though softer, untouched by the decades of hiding and war. Her eyes opened, brilliant amber flickering like wildfire. She gasped. Vara caught her. "It's okay," she whispered in their native tongue. "You're safe. I'm here." The girl looked around, dazed. Where are we?" Jace stepped back, giving them space. "You're on the Virelex," Vara said softly. "Your name is Vara Na. You've been asleep for a long time." "Why?" "We'll explain. I promise. But you have to trust us." "Us?" Vara turned, motioning Jace forward. He met the girl's gaze without flinching. "Jace Rowan. Terran, friend." Vara Na blinked. "A human?" "Yes," Vara said. "One who's risked everything to protect you." Jace smiled faintly. "She means I'm either very brave or very stupid." The girl gave a faint, surprised laugh. Then her body tensed. Her fingers pressed against the inside rim of the pod. "Something's wrong." "What?" Vara asked. "I hear them." Jace's eyes narrowed. "Hear who?" But before she could answer, the pod emitted a sharp pulse. A wave of energy surged outward, harmless, but unmistakable. It was a beacon. Vara Na clutched her head. "They're coming." Vara moved instantly, activating the crawlspace lockdown. "Who?" "Loyalists," Jace muttered. "Who wanted her alive, and you gone." All this time, Vara whispered, realization dawning. "They didn't just want to awaken her. They wanted to replace me." "She's younger," Jace said. "More malleable. A clean slate for their cause." "But I'm not going to be erased," Vara said. "Not this time." The ship rocked suddenly as emergency lights flared. Over the intercom, Captain Ryo's voice rang out. "All hands, to your stations. An authorized boarding party has breached Deck 3. Repeat, armed contact confirmed." Jace and Vara exchanged a glance. She turned to her sister. "Stay here. No matter what." Vara Na nodded, clutching the sides of the pod. Jace grabbed his concealed sidearm from a locker. "You ready for this?" Vara gave him a look he'd come to recognize, half defiance, half hunger. More than ever. They moved fast. Side by side. No orders needed. Just instinct. The corridors were chaos, flashes of weapons fire, screaming metal, crew ducking behind sealed bulkheads. Jace shot down a drone that swept through a junction. Vara disarmed a boarding soldier with one spinning kick and fired without mercy. They were poetry in motion, two bodies trained for war, synced by something far more dangerous than tactics. The reactor core was the final battleground. The Loyalists had made it their staging point, attempting to override the ship's navigation. A tall Zenthari male stood at the center, flanked by guards. "You shouldn't have awakened her," he spat. "She wasn't meant for you." "She's not yours to control," Vara replied. "You were a mistake. A relic." Jace stepped forward, raising his weapon. "Funny thing about relics. Sometimes, they're the only thing that endures." The firefight that followed was brutal, seconds felt like hours. But in the end, the Loyalists fell. And the last one standing was Vara. Breathing hard, she turned to Jace. His shirt was torn, blood on his cheek, but he was smiling. "You okay?" she asked. "Define okay." They laughed, sharp and breathless. In the silence that followed, Vara leaned forward and kissed him. Not like before. This was fire. This was final. He pulled her closer. "So now what?" "We don't stay here," she said. "The ship will never be safe again. But my sister can rule." She was meant to. I wasn't. "And you?" She smiled. "I go where I'm wanted." "And me?" he asked. She kissed him again. You're not getting rid of me that easily. Later, the jump gate lit up behind them as they left the Virelex. Varene stood at the window of the command deck, watching them disappear into the stars, her hand raised in farewell, her crown newly placed. In the pilot cabin of their stolen diplomatic vessel, Vara curled against Jace's side. You understood everything I said from the beginning, she murmured. I did. Then why didn't you say anything? He looked at her, eyes gleaming. Because I liked hearing the way you spoke when you thought I couldn't understand. She laughed softly, then whispered, there are still so many things I haven't said. Then we've got a whole galaxy ahead to hear them. And as the stars stretched wide before them, she leaned in and whispered something else in her language. This time, he didn't ask what it meant. He just kissed her like he already knew.